While scraping like this using Beautiful Soup or some other HTML parser to pull out the data that you want is a method that does work on some websites for web scraping. It's just outdated and just doesn't work on modern websites. So what I want to do in this video is show you the method that I think you should learn first when you're first starting to try and learn web scraping, rather than spending a load of time trying to figure out how to parse HTML that may or may not be there. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So if we come out over to this website and we look at this is your typical modern e-commerce website, and if we scroll down we've got like loads of fancy moving pictures, all sorts of stuff flashing out. There's just no way that you'd be able to try and parse this information from HTML. It's going to have loads of dynamic classes and everything like that, but fortunately for us there is a much easier way. I'm just going to do inspect and I'm going to go over to network and I'm going to refresh this page. For example, it's already popped a load up here. We have this wallet/all, so let's just kill this and just refresh this here. What we want to look for is something where the front end of the website, the front end that we were just looking at, that gives us all the images and all the information, we want to find the request that it's made to its API to actually get that information, and we can then just mimic that request ourselves, get that JSON data back, or all the information will be there, everything we could possibly need, all in a nice structured way, and it's going to be, a lot less calls. We don't have to go to product pages, etc., etc. Using an HTTP client that offers a solid TLS fingerprint is a great step to unlocking sites. But when it comes to scaling up, you need to use proxies. So I use ProxyScrape, who are kind enough to sponsor this video. We get access to high quality, secure, fast, and ethically sourced proxies that cover residential, data center, and mobile, with rotating and sticky session options. There's 10 million plus proxies in the pool all to use, with unlimited concurrent sessions from countries all over the globe, enabling us to scrape quickly and efficiently. I use a variety of proxies depending on the situation, but I recommend you start out with residential ones. But make sure you select countries that are appropriate to the sites you're trying to scrape and match your own country where possible. But to be fair, I've had great success with their mobile proxies, and although I'm not using them in this project, I've used them to great success before. Either way, it's still only one line of code to add to your project, and then you can let ProxyScrape handle the rest from there. And any traffic you purchase is yours to use whenever you need, as it doesn't ever expire. So if this all sounds good to you, go ahead and check out ProxyScrape at the link in the description below. Now let's get back to our project. So I found this one here. This is a request URL. You can see API Wallet Finder query. It's even got a page number in there for us. And if we go to response, we can see here, if I go preview, this has all the information in it. I believe somewhere down here there's pricing as well. I've seen that. If I go to the response, I think it's here. Yeah, look, see regional pricing, everything, loads and loads and loads of information. This is everything that they have on this product. So if you were trying to do some kind of market research, or maybe you were looking at selling similar products and you want to know what's out there, you could easily get all this information and you could track it. So we want to mimic this. So the first thing that I will always do is copy the URL from the headers, the request URL, and then I just paste it into my browser. I hit enter, and assuming you get the information back that you were after, that you're looking for, you generally know that it's not going to be too difficult. If you find some issues with this, it's not always this straightforward, so you might have to do a little bit more to get there, but you would be surprised how often this is the case. So I'm going to copy this again now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my terminal down here, and I'm going to do curl, and I'm going to paste the URL in, and look, we got all the information back here. So let's pipe this into JQ so it's easier to see. There it is. Now this one is particularly interesting because there is nothing to stop us. I've made a plain curl request just to get this information. So we don't have to worry about anything. And this is all publicly available data that we are pulling off. Everything comes from here that we could find. It would all be on here anyway. So there's no legal issues here. And in fact, to pull this information, we're going to do it in 20 requests, which is nothing, and we don't even need to do them quickly. So before I build out a scrape of this, I want to show you another site. So I need to make this less. We'll move you over to that screen and just close this one out here. Click delete. So this is another example, same sort of thing again, working along that line of maybe you are looking at getting into this market and you're doing some research. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to inspect, and I'm going to leave it on fetch/xhr. I need to do that for this actual page. Had the other one open still. There we go. And we can see now that if I do network and refresh this page, we don't find anything that we were looking for. None of this is particularly useful. This is rubbish, basically. We want this. What you want to do is you want to just click around, move around pages, do all sorts of things and see what comes up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit next page, and there we go. We got this one here. So let's make this bigger. We got this long URL here, which is basically just telling the API what information it wants, and the response here. Here's the preview. You can see we get products, and the actual JSON response. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. The actual JSON response here has the products in. So you can see we have products, position 1. Here is all the information, product IDs. It's going to have the price in here somewhere. All this sorts of everything here, because this is the information that the back end has sent to Hydrate, the front end, and put this information on the page so you can see it. So let's go ahead and just make out a simple example for this. We'll do this one, and maybe we'll do this one as well. In fact, let's just have a quick check of, do what we do normally. Let's just grab this here, paste it in, same thing, that all works. So let's go back over to our curl, paste the URL in. This needs to be moved over here. I'm going to pipe it into JQ, assuming that it works, which is just going to pass the JSON a bit neater. And there we go. Everything. It's all here. Nice and easy, right? So I don't know why this is what I'm trying to say. This should be the first method that you learn when you're learning how to web scrape. All these like tutorials that are out there, they're all too old. They all tell you to make a request and then pass the HTML, or to use some kind of browser. Now, both of those methods still do work, and you will find websites where, you know, it's server-side rendered, so it sends HTML back up to the front page. That's easy. You just get that HTML and pass it. But in most cases, I wouldn't start there. I would always start looking at this, and especially if you're doing e-commerce, because there's so much product information that needs to come backwards and forwards from the server to the front end. It's so easy to just find it, and it needs to be done like this, and it's all structured because it needs to be. There's also schemas which make it, you know, very structured and consistent structure as well, which I've covered in other videos. The most important thing is to check this first. So let's build something out real quick for this one. I'll get rid of that. We need to come back here, and I need the inspect. Go network, and if I just come back and refresh this page, and down here somewhere it was, had query in it, I think. I can't see it now. Can't see the wood for the trees. There's too many. There it is. Cool. So I'm just going to copy this URL. So let's create a new project. Let's go to my project folder, and we'll do some kind of cryptic name, so I'll never remember what this is ever, and we'll get lost forever. So I'm going to do create a new virtual environment. Once that's done, I'm going to activate it. That's just a shortcut for me to activate that virtual environment. You might have to type the full thing out. Now, this is what I'm going to do here. Is I'm going to install a couple of different things, right? So I'm going to install Rich, because Rich just helps when I'm printing out to the terminal, so we can all see it a bit neater. But I'm also going to install TLS client. And we're also going to do Pydantic. And I'm going to explain what these, explain why I use these. So TLS client is essentially a just built on top of requests, and what it does is it just sends more browser-like information up with the request. So with the TLS fingerprinting that some websites and the WAFs, that the firewalls that they use to block bots, especially like the basic Cloudflare, they can check by the TLS information that you send whether it's come from a browser or not, and they just block everything that hasn't. So using something like TLS client with Python or curl CFFI, anything that's based around Boltefins, Go client is fine. They all use that, so you should be fine. But that will just send the right information and give you a better chance of not getting blocked. We probably don't need it in this case, but it's worth doing anyway, just so you know you can like, you know you're covered, and it's all requests like. So let's just create a new Python file. I'm going to call this main.py, and then we're just going to do import TLS client. Let's make this bigger, and then I'm going to do from Rich. I'm going to import print. One thing that I wanted to check actually before before we write any more code, is the actual pagination. So I'm going to grab this URL again. What we're going to do is we're going to change the page number. So, you know, we go 2 and we get more products. So what happens when we go to page 10? Still getting products. Cool. Let's try 15. Still going. Okay, 20. Right, blank list. And this is important because you want to know what happens when you go to a page beyond the last one, so you know how to break out of your pagination loop. In this case, I know that if the list has a length of 0, because this is returned real JSON, this is just a JSON which will be interpreted into a list. If I go raw, this will become a list in Python. We know that if the list is empty, we can break. So that's always a good thing to figure out first before you start writing code. So let's just put this in here before I forget. And now we want to build out our, let's create our session. In fact, what I'd normally do is I just copy over from the TLS client GitHub page. Okay, we don't need that anymore. So we're on the TLS, this is the Python TLS client that I've been using. And we just want to copy this. This is all we want. So let's go do that and get you in there like so. Right, I don't know why, but it's wrong. You need to change this Chrome 112 thing to have a underscore in it like so, and we want to up the version so it's a bit more consistent with what we're expecting. There we go, cool. That should be it. 1200. No, my text is too big. There we go, sweet. So that's going to do that. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to put my proxy in here. I always scrape with a proxy these days. There's just no point in not, because if you go through a scraping program and you figure out what you need to do and you're using your own IP, then you try and use it with your proxies, you might have other issues. So I just use them from the start. We don't need any extra headers. What I do need to do is import OS, because I'm going to be pulling my proxy from my environment variable, get env. I'm just going to call this one's just proxy. So this is just me pulling the proxy string from my environment variable. If you don't do this, that's fine. You can paste your proxy string straight in here and it will work just fine as well. So that should be good. So let's change this to say our URL, for example, and then let's just print the response.json. I'm going to change that res to response so I know it's a bit clearer. Cool. So let's save this and run. We got an empty list, and that's good because we're on page 20. So let's put this back down to page 1 and run again. And there's the information that we were after. So what I want to do now is, the reason why I installed Pydantic is because I want the easiest, most convenient way of putting this data into something that I can then move around my program with dot notation, or I could then, have the option to put it back into JSON or put it into anything else that I would want to export it out into something else, maybe my database or a different application. And that's why I always tend to use Pydantic. And to create the models, I'm going to use JSON to Pydantic, which is a website that's going to do it all for me, which means I can just paste my JSON in here and it's going to give me the Pydantic models out. And what I tend to do is just go through this and have a quick look at what I actually want, so I don't copy everything that I don't need. I think I just want this because I want the regional pricing. So I'm just going to copy this section here. Copy, paste this into here, and this is going to create for us the models that we're going to need to dump this JSON into. Now, obviously, we're going to have more information and want it to go into less models, but it's going to just ignore the information that isn't in our model, which is exactly what we want. So we know that our data is just going to fit straight into our models. So we've got the region pricing, the metadata, and the base model, and this is exactly what I wanted. I'm going to copy this out, and I'm going to come back to my my code, which I'm going to put over here, and let's create a models.py and paste this in. So I'm going to create this. I'll change this to item model. There we go. So now we can see that we have this all imported with the information that we need. And now if you get a load of stuff here and maybe you don't want some of it, the thing that I normally just do is just comment out the parts that I don't want. So I just get rid of these if I don't want any of this information, and all that means is it's not part of the model, so that information will be ignored. Obviously this is just a bit of a rough start, but this will get you to where you want to get to start with. So I'm going to import in my item model now in my main.py. So I'm going to do from models, we're going to import in item model, and I need to refresh my thing. There we go. And now instead of printing just the response, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print item model, and I'm going to unpack that response into that item model. And now if we run py main, actually no, that's not going to work, is it? Because I've got a list, I need to loop through the list and put them in there first. So let's get rid of that. What we want to do instead of this is we want to do for item in a response.json. Make this a bit bigger, put this in the middle. Then we can say, let's just, our product is going to be equal to an item model instance of unpacking whatever's in that item into there, and then I'll just print the product. I'm going to save this, and we're going to run it, and we should now get actual Pydantic models back. And this is where some of the issues you get, which are validation errors. There's a few different ways you can handle this. Now, because some of the prices, as we saw there, that don't validate because they don't exist, we just need to change this to be optional. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a load of cursors, and I'm going to say optional, integer, or none, and that should solve that problem for us. So now if we run this again, it should be none where that it doesn't exist, and there we go. So now we have nice models with the information in that we wanted. That's exactly kind of where we were at here. Now you'll notice that some of these, like the content, my model was just, hey, this is just a dictionary, and that was fine. I didn't want to create Pydantic models for all of these because I didn't really feel the need to. I was probably going to remove the content list anyway. It has the pricing in again for some reason. I don't know why. So I'm just going to remove that for now. And we would just want to, check your data and decide, if it's useful for you or not. So we'll just do this for the moment. Let's come back to our main.py file. And all I'm going to do now is I'm going to tidy this up. So basically, this is how we're getting the information. We're going to put it into our Pydantic model so we can do something with it. For example, it just makes it so much easier to do something like name, and this is just going to give us the name of all the products now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tidy this up. So what I'm going to say is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a create session, and this is basically going to be all of this here. So this is going to create my session. I'm going to copy this in. I'll put this in up here. There we go. I don't need this here now because we're going to return this session from this function. I like to do this because it keeps all of the, when you call this function, you will have the session that you actually need with everything in it. And from here, I'm also going to do session.proxies.update. And this is going to, what sort of file does this need? Okay, it needs it like this. So this is just an easier way to handle it. So let's go back to our main file. So this needs to be a dictionary. So we'll do HTTP is going to be equal to our os.getEnv for our proxy, and also we want the HTTPS key, which is also the same thing, same proxy, getEnv proxy. Proxy, cool. And then we can return the session. So now we don't need this. So we want to take a function now that makes an API request, and this is going to take in a URL. Let's call the session first, a session and a URL. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that this is going to put a type hint in here actually. So this will be TLS client.session, just so we have type hinting. So I can say now that our response is going to be, equal to the session.get on the URL. And this is just going to return this out. So all we're going to do is return. Let's put in a little bit of error handling maybe. So we'll do if response.statuscode does not equal 200, we'll raise an exception here, and we'll just raise a generic exception, bad status code. This will just give us an idea if it goes wrong somewhere of why it's going wrong. There's probably better ways to do this, but I like to put something in there just in case. Then what we'll do is we will just return the response.json out here. So we don't need this anymore. So we need to create our main function. So let's have our main here and tie all this together. I'm going to keep my URL there. And I'm going to do my session is equal to the create session function. So we know now that this session that we've got is going to have everything that we need, all the TLS fingerprinting and the proxies that we're going to use. And then we'll do our for page in range, and I'm just going to do 1 to 25. We'll say let's put our URL down here. So we want it inside this for loop. And we're going to make this an F string, and we'll just put the page number in here into the URL directly, like so. You can do this with like the actual parameters and everything through requests or whatever HTTP client if you wanted to. I'm just going to use an F string for now. It's just easier. And then we're going to do our JSON data is going to be equal to the API request that we want to make with our session. And our URL, this is going to have the good page in, and then we want to do for item in JSON data. Let's just print out the unpacking item model. This is our item model, and we want to unpack the item JSON into it. There we go. Cool. Right, we just need one more thing. We need our if name is equal to main. Then we can run our main function here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this because there's going to be invariably something that I've typed wrong, so we might need to fix it. But no, it looks all right. So it seems to be working. We can see the nones coming up when it doesn't have a price for that region, which is pretty cool. So what I need to do now is add in the stop. And like when I said, when it showed us that the list was empty when we hit a page that doesn't have any data in, what we can do is we can now do if length of our JSON data is equal to 0 break, and I'll also put a print statement in here. I'll just say end of results, like so. I'm also going to tidy this up. We don't want to just print this. I'm going to call this our new product. It could be equal to that. I'm going to print out new product dot name. And then we're going to add it to a global list. I will just say our output list. Output can be our list. And we'll do output.append new product. And then once our whole thing has run, we'll just do print our output. And then we'll just ask for the length of it as well. And we'll do print length of our output as well. Cool. I'm going to clear this up and let's run it now, and we'll see, hopefully we get all of the product names come up here as we go. And also when we hit that 25th page or the 20th page where it fails, we'll see and we'll break out of our loop, and then we'll just have all the products stored in that list ready for us to move somewhere else, put in a database, do anything else like that. But I kind of really want you to understand that this is pretty much what your sort of cookie cutter web scraping project for modern sites is going to look like. Now, they're not all going to be this easy. That's a given, right? End of results. There we go. 271. They're not all going to be this easy. You're going to have cause issues. You're going to need to make sure that you get all of the headers and cookies that are required. You might need to find a way to generate those cookies, but that is all very, very doable. You might need to use an undetect browser and get the cookies that way. But if the website works like this, where it makes this API request, it is possible to scrape it like this. As I said, it's not always that easy, but I think this is a really good place for you to start learning how to web scrape instead of spending a load of time trying to parse ghost HTML, which just doesn't exist, and just grab the JSON data instead. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video and I haven't been waffling on for far too long and you haven't learned anything, because, well, that would be bad. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, hit a like. Don't forget to subscribe. That always helps me out. And if you want to see me do some more projects like this, you want to go here and look at this one, which is a little bit more advanced.